Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel Klein and I will be your presenter here for the next 20 minutes. Today we're going to be talking about using donations browse. So we're going to be working in the donations module and talking about different ways to manipulate the browse donations screen that can really help you find things quickly, print reports, search for different pieces of a transaction. So we're going to talk about that today. Josh is signed in with me to help answer questions. So if you guys come across a question as I'm talking, feel free to wait till the end to ask. I might cover it later, but you can definitely open up the questions section on your GoToWebinar toolbar. Feel free to type your question in there and Josh will give you a response that way. Or like I said, if you want to wait till the end, feel free to do that, and I can read them aloud too and answer them that way. It might be a pretty beneficial question that other people might like to hear, so I could read it out loud that way as well. But either way is fine. So today's topic is from one of our workbooks. It's from the Donations 104 workbook. It's pages 22 through 32. So if you have the workbook, feel free to follow along. If you don't have the workbook, they can be purchased out on our website at churchwindows.com. Lots of workbooks out there. You can look through each workbook and kind of get a little like table of contents of what's in each workbook, and then you can kind of pick which ones you would need. But like I said, today's Donations 104, the workbooks, if you want to get them in a downloadable format that you can print off, it's $12. If it's a workbook that you would want us to print and mail to you in like a binder ready format, you can do that, but it is a little bit more expensive. So check out those prices at churchwindows.com. And let's go ahead and get started here. So the webinar today is going to take place in version 21.18.1. This is our most current version, so if you're seeing something different than 21.18.1 when you open up your church windows, you can head out to the website, you can download the updates there, or you can always call us or email us to support@churchwindows.com and we can help get you up to date that way. All right, I'm going to open up donations. And you can get to browse two different ways. You can get to browse donations right in the middle of the screen here, or you can come up to the top left and hit the little browse button here. It does not matter which way you go, it takes you to the exact same screen. But this is our browse donation screen. This is going to show you the transactions that have been entered. This screen by default is going to be organized by giver. Okay, and I'm going to show you how you can manipulate this screen today in the webinar, but by default it's going to be organized by giver, and if you hit the little plus sign or double click their name, you're going to see all of the transactions or donations that have been entered to this person's name. Okay. Real quick, in the browse donation screen, this is where you would go make corrections or reversals to transactions. Okay, we're not getting in that today, but I want you to know the purpose of this screen. I think it's an important part of what we're covering today. So anytime you find that you've made a mistake, you need to make a change or just completely take out a transaction, this is where you do that by using the correct button up here and the reverse button up here. Okay. There's also a print donation screen, or I should say print donations button up at the top. When you click this button, it's going to print whatever information you have down here, whatever transactions you have displayed. Okay, so if I were to hit print right now, it would give me a report of all of these people and all this information. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is how to manipulate or change this screen to get the information that you are looking for, and then once you get the information you need, you can always come up here and do that print donations button and get a report. Okay. All right, so let's start on page 22 here in the workbook. I'm going to start by hitting this Change Dates, Filter, and Sort button. Now this is going to open up our browser options. If you've run reports through donations or even in accounting, you're going to see screens pretty similar to this. This is where you really go in and you customize and you set the screen to display the information you want. As you can see, there's a Filter tab, Group and Sort tab, Columns tab, Fonts tab, and then a Report Options tab. Okay, so we're going to go over each of these tabs one by one, and I'm going to give you an explanation of what you can do on each of the tabs. Okay, so first things first, on the Filter tab, you have this Giver search box. This Giver search box is going to allow you to look for a specific person's information. Okay, so the example that we're going to work with today is Penny. I'm going to come down here and choose Penny. You can search for someone by their number or any part of their name. So I'm going to select Penny here, and I'm just going to hit the OK button so you can see how the screen now changes. Okay, so now we just have Penny Morris. We have her total amount given within this date range. We didn't change the date range yet. It's going to default to your current year. But if I double click Penny's name or hit that plus sign over here to the left, it's then going to show me all of the transactions for Penny within my date range. Okay, pretty straightforward. You can also type right in here and look for the person that you need. We're going to go right to Penny here. Same information. We're going to get it that way as well. Okay. Now, if I come back in here, hit my Change Dates, Filter, and Sort, say I'm still looking for information on Penny, but I specifically want to see what donations she has given to her 2018 pledge. Okay, so once you have a giver selected in the giver search box, you can then come down here and pick from this individual's pledging. Okay, now keep in mind, if you don't have a giver in this box, you cannot access this pledge screen. This pledge screen is calculated based on the person that you have selected. So I'm going to go back to Penny. I'm going to choose her 2018 pledge to general fund. I'm going to hit OK, and now the screen is going to update as well, and it's just going to show me the donations that came in to this date range that were to her general fund pledge. Okay. Back into Change Dates, Filter, and Sort. I'm going to get rid of Penny for a little bit here. And I want to show you this account box. So the account search box allows you to display giving to one account. So I'm going to go with General Fund, and I'm going to say OK. And the screen is going to update again, and it's just going to show me transactions for the year, because I haven't changed my date range, that are just to my General Fund giving account. Pretty straightforward there. But I'm going to come back into Change Dates, Filter, and Sort. I'm going to X out my account. And now I want to show you checker reference number. This is really, really handy if you have a check number or a reference number, but you don't know who it belongs to or what the transaction is. So if you have that check number, you can simply type it in the box, hit OK, and then it's going to give you a result of who that check number belongs to. Now keep in mind, you could have people that have the same check number at some point. But for this example, the check belonged to Mel Miller. Here's my information. You could easily hit print donations and get a report of this single transaction if you needed to. All right, let's go back to Change Dates, Filter, and Sort again. And I want to explain this user field. This is really, really handy, and I think it's a tool that not a lot of people know about. The user field allows you to look up transactions for a specific login. So within your church windows, if you have security set up, meaning when people go to sign into the program or use the program, they have to put in a username and a password. This is where you could search for that user and see the transactions that just that user put in. Okay, now keep in mind, in security, there is a username field, a full name field, and a password field. Okay, when you type something in that user field, you have to use whatever that person's full name is, and that's going to give you the results or the transactions that that user put in. Okay, so say I'm new to the church, my name's Rachel Klein, I have been given a login, and say my supervisor wants to go in and double check the transactions that Rachel Klein, me, that I entered on my first day of, say, entering donations for the church, okay? If my supervisor wants to come in and see the transactions that I created, they could easily do that by going into this user field, typing in Rachel Klein, hitting OK at the bottom, and just the transactions that Rachel Klein entered are going to be displayed, okay? It's a pretty handy feature, so you need to double check on stuff or see what's going on. You can use that user field. I have sample data right now, so I don't have a username to actually show you the example, but I think you get the gist of how it works. It's pretty handy. Batch codes here. If you are a church that likes to group your donations by batch code is if you want to keep your donations separate. So say your church has 3 services Sunday morning and you want to batch those donations into 3 separate groups, you would use a batch code when entering donations. This is a way for you to pull up the gifts that were entered to a specific batch code. That's where you would use that. If you don't use batch codes, you're not going to have anything to pick from in the list there. All right, let me turn my page here. Let's talk about giver number range. This is pretty handy if you just want to see the giving for a particular giver number range. So say your children's envelopes are 1 to 100 and you want to see if any of the kids are giving in a particular period. Simply put that range in, hit OK, and then the results are just going to be for the people that have a giver number that falls in that range. Let me X those out. I want to take a minute to talk about date occurred and date posted. They are 2 different things. Date occurred is going to be the donation date that was used when you entered the giving. Okay, so let's look at this last week, for example. So Sunday fell on the 28th. Okay, so the donation date that you could use would be 10/28/2018. But let's say I was actually sitting at the computer and entering those donations on October 29th. That's a Monday. So my date posted would be October 29th. Okay, my date occurred would be the donation date, which would be Sunday, October 28th. So date posted can be really handy tool if you're like, I know I entered donations yesterday, but I can't seem to find them. I think I might have messed up my date occurred, my donation date. That would allow you to clear out the date occurred boxes and just search on a date posted. That is the day you were sitting at the computer creating the donations. Okay, so they are 2 different things, just keep that in mind. But another great feature about donations is I could take this back to 2016. Say I want to see all my gifts from 2016. There's no need to go in, change the year, but you easily come in here to date occurred, swap it for browse, hit OK, and it's going to go back and show you all of your transactions from 2016. You can also do multiple years. You could do 2016 through 2018 if you wanted to. The donations program will allow you to do that. No big deal. Let's see, transaction number. This is pretty handy as well. If you need to go in and see a specific transaction number, this allows you to go in and search for something. Oops, let me pick a different one here. I think that was the one I reversed out for an example in a minute here. Let's see if this works. Yep, 2150. Here's my transaction number here, 2150, and it's giving me the details of the transaction. Okay. Let's go back in here and let's talk about amount. Amount, also pretty straightforward, guys. I know this is pretty basic stuff, but amount allows you to go in and look for transactions that fall within a particular dollar amount. So say I want to see all the giving from $1,000 to $5,000. Simply put in that range and I hit OK, and then it's going to do just that and give me those results of just the gifts that meet that amount. Now you can also do one amount. Say you entered a gift for a very particular dollar amount and you're having trouble remembering who the giver was. You can put that same amount in 2 boxes and then it's going to pull up any transactions that are exact to that amount that you've typed in. Pretty handy. All right, let me clear that out. Now I do want to show you too the show reversed. So anytime you have gone in and made a correction, you've done a reversal to a transaction, you can check the show reversed box and hit OK. And then any reversals that you've done are going to show up in red. So here's that transaction that I just tried to show you, but that I reversed. That's why it didn't appear. But once you check to include show reverse transaction, it will be included in your search, and we can see that it's showing up in red because it has been removed. Once I come back in here and I get rid of that show reverse checkbox, my screen's going to rebuild, and now I don't see any in red because it's only showing me my active transactions, if you will. Okay. Pretty straightforward stuff there as well. I do want to show you a couple things down here at the bottom. You have this clear filter, restore default layout, and restore saved layout. Clear filter would be if you have come in here and set any particular settings. If you want to get back to the default screen, you would simply hit clear filter and it would get rid of any filters you put in. Same thing with restore default layout. If you've come in and customized this, hit that restore layout and it'll take it back to the original settings. Okay. All right, let's move on to the Group and Sort tab here. Group and Sort tab is really, really handy, and I think it's a feature that isn't utilized as much as it should. This allows you to change the way your screen is sorted or grouped, okay? So right now, you see it says Sort Field 1. It's organizing back here everyone firstly by giver, okay? So if I were to come in here and change this to, say, account, and I hit OK, it's going to rebuild my screen, but it's going to be organized by my giving account. So it's then going to group everything by my giving account. You see general fund, you see missions, building, so forth. Okay. You can also come in here and do a secondary sort or sort field 2. So say I want my sort field 1 to be by account, but then after that I want to see it by donation date. If I leave donation date in here and I check group by field 1, I hit OK. Now when I expand account, it's then going to group it by my donation date. If I expand it one more time, then I will see all of the people that gave to general fund on January 7th. But you can definitely play with the group and sort and really get a lot of different great options. You could also sort by payment method if you wanted to. That can be a pretty handy feature. And let's do a subsort on, say, I don't know, giver. We'll say OK. So now we can see what my total was for check, what my total was for cash, EFT, stock, so forth, and then I can expand it and see the details. So group and sort is pretty handy here. I'm going to hit my restore default layout to get it back to being organized by my givers. But then let's go back in here and let's move on to the columns tab. Columns tab is really flexible. It allows you to pick and choose exactly what information is going to be displayed behind me. So if you, or behind this screen. So if you see it has transaction number, account, donation date, amount, batch code, and then if we look here at my column headers, those are the exact column headers that I'm seeing here. Okay. Let's say your church doesn't track batch code. We'll remove that. Let's say your church doesn't track payment method. I will remove that. And let's say it doesn't check the check number, and we don't do anything with comments, which is fine. I'm going to move those over to the left. So whatever information you have over here on the right under visible columns, these are the columns that you are going to see for your transactions. So I have the fields or the columns that I want. I'm going to hit OK. And now my screen's going to update, and it's only going to show me that information that I asked for. Okay, let's go back in here, and I want to show you something down at the bottom that I think is really important. I'm going to get my highlighter here too. But this says save selections as default. So when you work in here and you always want to have these specific columns displayed, if you check this save selections as default box and hit OK, that is going to make you a new default layout. Okay, so the next time you come in here, I close out and I come back in, it's going to remember just those columns that I wanted. Now these are saved per username. So my settings for my Rachel Klein login is going to be different than, say, the pastor's settings or the secretary's settings or someone else. These are going to be saved to the specific user, which is a really handy tool. Okay. Now, there's one more thing I needed to go over here. We talked about columns. Fonts. Fonts is going to be only come into play when you actually go to print a report. So if I want to take my font, say I want to make my header 820, say I want it really big. If I do that, let's say I'm going to just pick penny so I don't have a huge report here. And then I hit print donations, which you can do at any point when you're working in Browse. It's going to update my report, and it's going to make my header a lot bigger. So that Fonts tab is going to change the information you see when you go to print the report. Okay. So this tab here, this Fonts tab, is going to adjust the text once you hit print donations and generate the donations browser report. Also, there's some more report options here. When you go to print the information, if you are wanting to see their membership category, so like a V after their name, or if you're wanting to see the D indicator telling you that they're a donations giver, you can check those boxes, and when the information prints, you will then have your D's and your V's after people. So see, Carolyn Jane, she has a D, she's a donations giver. Jeffrey Alexander has a D. If you're printing a report and the people don't need to know if they're a donations giver, visitor, or a member, then you can definitely come in here under report options and remove those checks, and then those letters will not print. All right. Pretty straightforward stuff there. Let me look over at my questions because that was everything I needed to cover today. Oh, doesn't look like we have any questions. All right. If anybody has a question now, feel free to type that in and I will do my best to get an answer for you. If you got the information that you were hoping to gather from today's webinar, feel free to leave the webinar. That's fine. But like I said, if you have a question, type it in and I will do my best to get you an answer. And if no questions come in, then I will close the webinar as well. Teresa, you're welcome. Thanks for attending. All right. I'm not seeing any questions. I hope it was clear and to the point and you guys got what you were looking for. And I hope you learned something today that will help make your job a little bit easier in the future. But if you do come up with something, call us on our support line or shoot us an email to support@churchwindows.com and we can always get you an answer that way. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks again for attending.